Ijarah, semi-debt-based product. Introduction of Ijarah. Its literal meaning is to give something on rent, and in Islamic finance it is referred to a legal binding contract where the owner of something with value transfers its usufruct to another party for a predefined period in exchange of an agreed consideration. Under this concept, the customer of an Islamic financial institution can use an asset or equipment owned by an Islamic bank for a fixed period and price. The subject matter could be a car, home, plant, or office automation. What is usufruct? It is the right to enjoy the use and advantages of another's property. Types of Ijarah. The subject matter giving usufruct can be divided into two types: hiring a person or Ijarah al-amal, a contract in which the underlying usufruct is an individual's services and expertise, for example, services of an engineer or carpenter. It is centrally equivalent to an employment contract. And lease of an asset or Ijarah al-ayn, a contract in which a person transfers usufruct of its asset to another in exchange of agreed rental, for example, house, machinery, or vehicle. It is somehow equivalent to conventional operating lease contracts. Essentials of Ijarah. Lessor provides the asset or services against rental. Known usufruct is transferred. Period of lease must be clearly specified at the time of contract. Asset is given to the leasee on a trust basis, so it must be used only for the purpose specified in the agreement. After the lease period expires, the lessor may give the asset to the leasee as a gift or can sell it by his free will. Mechanism of Ijarah in Islamic banking. A customer approaches the bank with the request for Ijarah financing. The bank purchases the item required for leasing and receives the title of ownership from the vendor. The bank gives the asset to the customer. In return, the customer makes periodic payments as per the contract, and at the end of the contract, the asset title transfers to the customer as per the Sharia-compliant method disclosed in the agreement. Types of leasing. Operating lease. A rental agreement in which the leased asset remains in the ownership of the leaser and comes back to the owner after the lease period. Hire purchase. An agreement whereby a lessee hires an asset for a period of time by paying installments. At the end of the agreement, the asset is transferred to the lessee if all installments are paid without any additional contract. It is not permissible to Sharia. Financial lease. In conventional finance lease, a purchase bargain option is an integral part of the lease agreement. The purchase bargain option binds the leaser to transfer the leased asset to the lessee at any time, even before the maturity of the lease agreement. It is impermissible in Sharia due to the following reasons. First, the leaser does not bear the responsibility of the asset, and second, the transaction is tied up with another transaction. Types of Islamic lease. Types are based on the method through which the ownership is transferred. For no consideration, through a gift. For no consideration, through a gift. For token consideration, through sale deed. For price specified in the lease, through sale deed. For the remaining amount if the lease is terminated earlier, through sale deed. And gradual transfer through diminishing mushaka. Understanding Ijarah wa Iqtina. In this type of Ijarah, at the end of leased period when all rental installments are paid, the leaser may sign a separate promise to gift the leased asset to the lessee. The validity of this arrangement is subject to two conditions. First, the agreement of Ijarah itself should not be subjected to signing this promise of sale or gift. And second, the promise should be unilateral and binding on the promiser only. Basic rules for Ijarah. Ownership of corpus of leased. Corpus of leased commodity remains in the ownership of the leaser, and only usufruct is transferred to the lessee. Commencement of lease rentals. Lease rental is not payable by the lessee until the asset is delivered. Title of ownership. During the entire term of the leaser must retain the title to the assets and bear all risks and rewards pertaining to its ownership. Insurance. Takaful of the leased asset should be in the name of the leaser, and the cost of such insurance is also borne by the leaser. Termination. A lease can be terminated before expiry only with the mutual consent of parties. Amount of rental. It must be agreed in advance in an unambiguous manner. Assignment of lease rentals. Assignment of only the lease rentals is not permissible except at par value. Termination. The contract will be terminated if the asset ceases to give service for which it was rented. Late payment. In case of late payment of rentals by the lessee, the leaser is authorized to charge a predetermined percentage per day or per annum. This will be a compulsory contribution to a charity fund constituted by the leaser. Specific purpose lease. If no specific purpose is identified in the agreement, then it can be used for any purpose in normal course. Conditions of the Ijarah contract. Responsibilities of the leaser. The leaser bears and assumes the full risk of the corpus of the leased asset. The leaser is liable to pay all the expenses incurred in the process of asset purchase, and taxes and charges related to ownership will be borne by the leaser. Responsibilities of the lessee. The lessee is responsible for any harm caused to the asset due to misuse or negligence, and taxes related to the use of the asset will be borne by the lessee. Determination of rental. Rental must be determined at the time of contract for the whole period of lease. It is permissible to fix different amounts of rentals for different phases of the lease period. Determination of the rental on the basis of the aggregate purchase cost, as normally done in financial leases, is permissible. The leaser cannot increase rent unilaterally, and any agreement to this is void. Rent or part of it may be payable in advance before the asset's delivery to the lessee. The lease period shall commence from the date of delivery of the asset to the lessee. The rental amount could be tied up with variable benchmark. However, the ceiling and floor should be determined. Advance rentals or delayed rentals may be paid subject to mutual agreement, and in case of floating rentals, the rental for the first period of Ijarah must be specified. Termination of lease. If the lessee contravenes the agreement, the leaser may terminate it unilaterally. Destruction of the asset terminates the lease. In case of the lessee's death, the lease will be terminated. Sublease. If the leased asset is used differently by different users, the lessee can sublease the asset with the permission of the leaser. Difference between murabaha and leasing. Murabaha cannot be transacted on a future date because the sale would be executed simultaneously after taking delivery from the supplier, and the seller would never bear its risk, which Sharia does not permit. However, it is permissible in leasing because the asset remains under the risk and ownership of the leaser throughout the leasing period. The difference between Ijarah and financial leasing. In Islamic leasing, rent can only be charged after delivery of the leased assets, while in financial lease, the rent is charged from the days the price is paid, even if the delivery is delayed. In Islamic lease, the penalty of late payment is given to charity, but in financial lease, this penalty is an income of the leaser. At the end of the Islamic lease, the deposit can be refunded to the lessee, but in financial lease, the down payment is not refunded. In Islamic lease, the transfer of asset to the lessee is not included in the lease agreement. However, this transfer is part of a financial lease agreement. And in Islamic leasing, the risks and rewards of assets are borne by the leaser, but in financial lease, they are transferred to the lessee.